The Jehovah's Witnesses are not Christians. They are a completely different religion that is based on Christianity. They fall in line with the other religions like Roman Catholicism and Mormonism that claim to be Christian, but they fall so incredibly far away from it because of two primary issues, which are actually the same issues as the other ones, and yet from each other, they're also the same issue. See, the primary reason why Jehovah's Witnesses are not Christians is because they have a different God and a different gospel. See, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they have what is called the New World Translation. This is a different version of the Bible, and this is actually not a translation. This is a fake translation of the Bible. This is where they just rewrote the Bible and claimed it was another translation. But for the 1961 version, it was primarily translated by 5 different men, all of whom failed a kindergarten-level literacy test in Greek and Hebrew. It was absolutely not a translation, it was a rewrite. And the reason why is because when you go back to the founding of that religion, of that cult, you'll find Charles Taze Russell hated the idea of hell, and he hated the idea that Jesus is God. So basically, you'll see that they tried to add things into the Bible in order to alter that very fact. So just as an example, and you can go check me on this, go to Jw.org and you can see this. You can pull up the New World Translation and you can see this exact change. You can go look at the Greek interlinear. You can see that everything I'm about to tell you is 100% true. See, what they did was they added words into John 1. They did this in multiple places in the Bible, but specifically we're going to go over this one part. See, in a real translation of the Bible, John 1:1 will say, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Now, in the New World Translation, it's going to read differently. It's going to say, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was a God." Just to focus in on that real quick, because that very clearly says that in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. En arche en hologos, kai hologos, en prostontheon, kai theos en hologos. That literally, verbatim, word for word, would say, en arche en hologos, in the beginning was the Word, kai hologos en prostontheon, and the Word was with God, kai theos en hologos, and God was the Word. See, within that, there's no room for saying that it was a God. Whenever you look at the grammatical structure of that sentence there, it is quite literally showing that the logos, the Word, is literally God. And then verse 14 says that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, which is how we know that the logos is Jesus. So it's calling Jesus the eternal God, Yahweh. But what the Jehovah's Witnesses teach is that Jesus is not the eternal God. They teach that he is Michael the archangel, the first and greatest creation of Jehovah God. They think and they teach that he was an angel that was first created, the greatest angel that was ever created, who then became Jesus, went to the cross, died. They teach he did not actually have a bodily resurrection. They teach it was a purely spiritual resurrection. And upon this spiritual resurrection, he then ascended up to heaven and once again became Michael the archangel. Every aspect of that is heretical. Now we can go on to the weird stuff where they deny that Jesus was crucified on a cross, which he was crucified on estreos, which means an instrument of crucifixion, or it can mean a tree, or it can mean a post. But regardless, the most common forms of crucifixion, including a cross that looks like this kind of a cross, where you can get these shirts at taco-docs.com, by the way, the likelihood of him being crucified on this shaped cross historically is extraordinarily high. See, briefly going into that, there were a couple different tools that they had. There was one that looked like this, there was one that looked like this, and there was one that looked like this. We know that it looked like this or like this because he had a sign above his head that said that he was the King of the Jews. So if he had a sign above his head, then that means it was either this one or this one. It could not be this one, which was the most common one, but this was the cheapest one. But regardless, the actual shape of the object doesn't matter, but they jump to it and cling to it so incredibly hard. They also believe that only 144,000 people will ever go to heaven. They teach that hell doesn't exist. They teach that that is a soul death, and that it is not eternal torment, which is exactly what Jesus said it was. But regardless, what they teach is that you are saved by faith plus works. And with any of these religions, if it is faith plus works, then that means that you don't have a faith in Jesus, you have a faith in you. You have to have a full trust in Jesus in order to be a biblical Christian. And if your faith is divided in the works of Jesus and the works of you, where you are getting some of the works of Jesus, but you have to make up for the other ones in order to earn salvation, then your faith is exclusively in yourself in order to do good enough. That is self-righteousness, that is arrogance, that is pride, and that is a really, really dangerous thing that keeps you separated eternally from God. This is why it's such a big deal whenever you have these different religions that teach faith plus works, because it's either all that Jesus did, where he was the sufficient sacrifice, or you deny that he was the sufficient sacrifice and say he wasn't good enough. That's ultimately what it comes down to for every one of these cults that pretends to be a form of Christianity. So if you want a part 2 on this, where we go into the other stuff like the Streios and Gehenna, and we go into Hades, and we go into all the different aspects, the 144,000, all that stuff, let me know and I'll make a second video on these guys. But go to taco-talks.com, get one of these shirts, consider supporting me over on Patreon. We're going to start doing a lot of live streaming stuff over there, like Bible studies, where like if you're in a certain tier on there, where we're actually going to do like live Bible studies where it's you and me, and we can actually just hang out and talk over Zoom, where you can see my face, I can see your face. It'll be a fun time. I don't know when those are going to be starting. I'm guessing that I'm going to start them sometime in February. So consider supporting me over there. Follow me on X, YouTube, and Instagram. Linktree is in bio. Thank you guys. God bless.